is about putting your best foot forward as a candidate for a job. So I've got quite a few things to share with you today. As Prue said, she's recording the session, so you can go back and have another look at that if you like, and I'm welcome for you to have a copy of the slide deck. And I'm also, please do put your questions in the chat, and I'll make sure that there's plenty of time to answer those today. But you are also welcome to reach out and connect with me. I'm very easy to find on social media. You'll find me on LinkedIn, very active there, and you're more than welcome, and I would encourage you to connect with me, whether that's to ask some questions or to build your social profile. So now Prue is actually going to be helping me. So if it sounds a bit odd and I'm asking for the slides to be moved, that's because that's exactly what I'm doing. Fantastic. Well, we might move on. Thank you, Prue. We'll go to the first slide. So in today's session, what I want to work through with you is a bit more information about the importance of your personal brand, the power of that resume, cover letters, networking, really importantly, experience versus skills, and that comes in a lot when you're applying for a role, absolutely backing yourself 100%, how to stand out in a crowd, and then how to get prepared and perform well at interviews. And we'll get to the next slide. All right, your brand. So your brand, we all have a personal brand, right? It is not a logo, it's a collection of perceptions. And so what that is the things, that the way that people think about you. It's not what you say, it's not what you do, it's what other people perceive about what you say and do. So if you are not branding yourself or taking some control of it, you can be sure that it's there already. You have a personal brand, whether you thought you did or you're not, whether you constructed it and manage it or not, you have a personal brand. It's about what people think about you. So what do people remember about who you are? So a managed brand helps promote your best self and is authentic. So it's truly you, it's not fake, it's really the best representation of you. And this is about putting your best foot forward, particularly when you're looking for a new job or a promotion. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So often people have said good work speaks for itself. I guess I will ask you the question, does good work speak for itself? I think it says a lot, and it does say something, but does it say enough? You've really got to own it. Be a bit confident, brand it, and that will help you stand out from the crowd. Next slide. So why does this matter? Now, some of you will have done some communications courses and you may have seen this statistic that over 90% of communication is non-verbal. Now, at the moment, many of us are working virtually, so our non-verbal communication is only what we can see over the screen. But ordinarily, we're in workplaces together, we attend interviews together, we work alongside other people. So it's often what you don't say that matters. And that really comes down to your personal brand because, as I mentioned before, it's people's perception. And so therefore, rightly or wrongly, it is what people perceive about you and your capabilities, how good you might be at a job, what kind of a person you are. It can help you become more visible and memorable to other people, to differentiate yourself from others. So again, what makes you stand out, what makes you you, and send a clear message to people of who you are and what you stand for, what your values are. It can also position yourself as an influencer. So if you become known, for example, as a subject matter expert in a particular topic, or you have a high interest in something, and that doesn't even have to be work related. It could be you might be recognised as one of the best sausage roll makers, in your suburb. That essentially can give you influence because other people might be drawn to that. A bit of a silly example, but you can see it can help you actually influence different outcomes and absolutely influence the way people think about you. So your brand will help you communicate who you are, what you can do, what your capabilities are, what you value, and what is it that you absolutely stand for. Slide. So how do you go about promoting your brand? Now, this can actually sound really, really daunting because it's almost like, do I have to get a t-shirt and print my brand on it? No, absolutely not. But it's about thinking about how can you put yourself out there? How can you get people to see the great things about you? What is it that you stand for? So building influential relationships is one. Now you might think, gosh, who do I know that's influential? You will know lots of people. The people you know at Soldier On, they are very influential, right? Make sure that you're promoting your personal brand to them. Employers, people like me and my colleagues at BAE Systems, we are, I wouldn't see myself as being overly influential, but actually, if you think about it, we are the people who are involved in the recruitment activity and the resourcing activity. And we know a lot of people. So therefore, actually, we do have a lot of influence. Getting involved and getting more people to know who you are can also go a really long way. So that can be about just putting your hand up, volunteering, donating your expertise. The more people that can see who you are and what you stand for, that of course will help to strengthen your personal brand. You might be able to take a leadership role. That could be in a sporting club, that could be in a volunteering organisation, could be your local RSL, whatever. But that can be a way of certainly building your network, but also having people, again, understand who you are and what you stand for. Then their view of you, their perception of you is, wow, that person has great leadership skills, they are great to work with, they get things done, etc., etc. It's also important to promote your accomplishments. And in terms of promoting your accomplishments, that doesn't mean being a giant bragger. You don't have to do that. But you can promote your accomplishments in a quiet but confident way. You can do that on social media. You can do that through your relationships. So it's taking credit for the great things that you do. And it is absolutely possible to do that without looking like an egomaniac. So promoting what you've done, again, helps to promote your personal brand and what people think about you. And I would say maximising your participation in meetings and in groups. So if you're part of a group and you don't say anything, then you probably, people think, I don't know who that is. They might then develop that idea that, well, that person's personal brand is very quiet, doesn't have anything to say. Now, you also don't want to be the person that, overtalks everybody. Get the balance right, but ensure that you are actively contributing and you're basically showing people who you are and, again, what's important to you, what you can do, what you're capable of. And those are the things that really improve a person's perception or other people's perceptions of who you are and what you can do. The next slide. The other good ways to promote your brand is build your network. Now, networking, and we'll talk about that a little bit more shortly, networking is absolutely critical. And it can be one of the most frightening things because that idea of, working the room, well, none of us can really work the room at the moment because many of us are working from home or we're stuck at home because of lockdowns. But even the virtual room, and that virtual room could be also social media, sessions like this, opportunities to connect with other people. So be confident and do you know what? People will want to talk to you. They will want to hear from you. So sometimes that starting a conversation, you think, oh my gosh, I've got nothing to say. Just give that some thought before you go into a session so that you can contribute with confidence. And again, it will strengthen your brand. Wow, who was that? That person made a really good impression on me. The dress to impress and act the part. So I think that's always important. Now, I'm not quite sure I'm dressing to impress today. I've got a scarf and a North Face jacket. I'll be honest, I'm sitting in a house that we're renovating with painters all around, with all the windows open, so it's absolutely freezing. But I would certainly always, no matter what the session was, we do a lot of video calls now, do a lot of video interviews, a lot of video meetings. And I guess the tendency could be just to be in our active wear. But you'll find that we do get a bit dressed up. put my earrings on, make sure that we do look presentable, because despite the fact that even in this COVID-based environment, when we are all quite isolated, people will still make an impression, form an impression of you by what they see. So if you look really scruffy, whether that's in a face-to-face meeting or just over, over a video call, or FaceTime or Messenger, whatever it is you're using, then a perception is very easily made about you. Now, of course, if it's your family, then be who you are. But when you're trying to make an impression, think about, what will the other person perceive? So, am I dressed sufficiently? Obviously, I don't want to catch a death of cold today, but I think it's really important to, even in this environment that we're in now. So, absolutely think about that. Managing a professional image online is also important. So many of you will have social media accounts. That might be Facebook or LinkedIn, and we'll talk a bit more about that because LinkedIn is really important while you're job seeking. Facebook, we don't use it as much from a professional perspective, but LinkedIn absolutely. So really think about how your brand is coming across on social channels. So what does the photograph look like? What are you posting about? So if you're posting about, if you've got a really strong political view and you're posting about that, that's your choice to make. But I guarantee you someone's going to, that will be wrapped up into your personal brand, and potentially decisions made about you that might not be fair, but unfortunately it will happen. So particularly while you are, looking for work, looking to advance your career, keeping that online presence really professional is absolutely critical. That's I call that your e-reputation. So think about that, and to go back and have a look this afternoon is, what does that photograph look like? Is it professional? Or if your LinkedIn photograph is of you at the beach, it's actually not appropriate. So you've got to really think about what does this say about you. Be strategic about your brand, and again, I guess that really comes down to that. What do we want people to see? If I want to plan for how people might perceive me, let me go and have a look at, what does my LinkedIn account say about me? What does my Facebook account say about me? Are there blogs that I have written or other things that, are they selling the right message that I want people to read? And if not, then you've got to be a bit more strategic about that. And again, as I said before, you might have very strong political views. However, it might not be terribly strategic to be sharing them in an open forum. Even if you think your account is private, I can assure you that people can see it. And once it's on the social network, it's there forever. So that what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, what goes on Facebook stays on Facebook. So really think about that. Be easy to find. Now, if you're thinking, LinkedIn, I haven't really looked at my LinkedIn account, or I haven't got one, that's going to be your next step. Really, really important, because you want people to be able to find you. So when you're looking for work, of course, you can apply for jobs, but recruiters are also looking for people. So make yourself easy to find. And we can talk a bit more about that when we look at LinkedIn. I guess in summarising that, we really need to market ourselves and market our personal brands. Why? Because we want to get ahead. We want to get that next great job. We might want to get a promotion. It's really important to manage that. The professionalism is absolutely key. And of course, that old saying is that first impressions, they only take seconds to make, but they can take weeks, months, or years to change. All right. Now, dressing for success. I mentioned this before. Simple, understated class apparently makes a powerful statement. It really does, though. I mean, you will think, some of you will have interviewed people in the past, and I know if you're in the military, you will have turned up to the interview in your uniform, but I imagine it was immaculate, and I imagine your shoes were immaculate. Well, think about that in the commercial world as well. Always dress well. Even if you're going for a role that is a hands-on role, dress up. You don't need to wear a three-piece suit, but go in with absolutely creating that really professional image. Now, of course, you might wear you go back to wearing a uniform for the job, but you still want to be memorable when you go to that interview. So well-maintained clothes, don't let dirty shoes be the lasting memory, because again, it'll take seconds for that impression to make. But unfortunately, that might be one of the only things that the recruiter remembers if they'd interviewed lots of people. So don't give anyone any reason to count you out because of the way you looked. They say classic colours and style never go out of fashion, so ensure that you've got clothes that are fit to wear to an interview, and save that active wear for the gym, or even when the dress code is casual. Doing a video interview, do make sure that you dress up as well. I did hear a really good tip recently that don't do the anchorman style, right? Just the top half and you act your trackies or your shorts underneath. What if something happens and you have to jump up, and they've all of a sudden you've got the fire alarm going off or something like that, and then all of a sudden they can say, well, he's got a business shirt on and a tie, or she's got a nice top on, but oh my gosh, she's got a cut off denim shorts. So if you're doing a video interview, appreciating that they can really probably only see this much, work on the basis that what if they saw your whole outfit? So dress from top to bottom. Okay, we'll go on to the next slide. Now, I mentioned LinkedIn before. I've called this social media one-on-one. LinkedIn is an amazingly powerful tool. It's a great way to network. It's a great way to learn things. It's a great way to stay connected with work colleagues. It's a good way to look for jobs, to brand yourself, and it's a good way for recruiters to find talent for jobs. And we do that all the time. Whilst we do post job advertisements, you can rest assured that our recruiters are also looking through LinkedIn all the time for the type of talent that is required for the jobs that we fill. So this is why it's important to be found. So ensuring that you've got a LinkedIn profile and that you optimize that profile is really important. Now, if you set up a profile and you don't invite anyone to join your network, it's going to be a little bit lonely. LinkedIn works on a scale. So, for example, if you've got 2 connections, you'll also see their connections. And so you basically have first connections, then their connections are your second connections, then their connections are your third connections, right? And so you can see the more connections you have, the bigger reach you have. So their connections can see you too. So if you're posting something, you might post, you've read a really interesting article that you've posted, or you've seen a job and you've actually shared it on LinkedIn, then other people in that network can see it too. So as you're reaching a broader group, but they can also reach you. So the power of having that big network. I mean, obviously, you don't have to connect with everybody. Be careful, because they're, unfortunately, with identity fraud and all of those sorts of things, you can have some weird requests. Manage it professionally, but look to connect with people who could help you. So connect with all the people that you know, the people that you've worked with before. Connect with your staff at Soldier On. Connect with people like me. Connect with recruiters. Build it out, because the more people that you connect with, that's more people that can see who you are. Some of you who might already be on LinkedIn might already do this now, but you can join and contribute to groups. And groups, there's so many groups. There's defence industry groups, there's sort of ex-military groups, there's groups for software engineers, there's groups for HR people, etc., etc. If you join groups that are of interest to you, you can contribute, and other people will learn something from you. And again, there you are, you're impressing your personal brand, sharing who you are, people then understanding, wow, this person's got something interesting to say. But you can also learn a lot from those groups. So it helps you to make extra connections and helps you to build your brand. By sharing your interests, skills and accomplishments, again, you're enhancing your personal brand. LinkedIn is pretty easy. in that when you are setting up your profile, it will tell you how strong your profile is and it'll give you hints to make it stronger. So do follow all of its advice. It'll ask you for qualifications, the skills that you have, your experience. Now, obviously, we've got to be careful about how much detail we put about what we do for work, particularly those of you who've, obviously you've been in the military. There is a limit to the detail that you can provide. And it's the same for us in defence industry. We've got to be a bit careful for our employees as to how much information they share. But they can absolutely still share enough information for people to see, wow, that's Jane, and Jane's a software engineer at BAE Systems and she works on land programs, right? That would be the level of detail. We wouldn't have to go into any more detail than that. But that's still great. Another good thing to do on LinkedIn, there's a functionality to recommend others. So someone that you've worked with before, you could actually put a recommendation. I worked with Sue. Sue was really fantastic at her job, always got things done. Often if you do a recommendation for someone, they will reciprocate and do a recommendation for you. And of course, if on your profile you've got all these people that have said what a fantastic employee this person was, or a great person to work with, always gets things done. Again, it's a really positive impression that's being made, and it also gives employers the chance to look and say, "Wow, this might be a really good person to have in the team," because other people have been delighted to work with them. So recommending others is a good way too. And there are tips on when you're doing your LinkedIn profile of how to do that. So it's all pretty simple. But if you don't have a profile, that's the very start. Get it up and running. Just follow the bouncing ball. LinkedIn will actually give you some tips as you go, and then you can keep working on it and keep building it out. And you will see, on LinkedIn, there are job boards. And in addition to just networking with people, you can actually apply for jobs. So, of course, there are other job boards that we'll talk about, but LinkedIn is really leading the way. So a really important one to be a part of. Thanks, Prue. Now, the resume. Again, it's your personal brand on a piece of paper, or it could be a virtual piece of paper. It generates interest in you. A resume won't get you the job, but its job is to open the door. All right. So it's essentially the marketing document of you. It's the foot in the door. So the trick of a good resume is to ensure that you don't go on the no pile, that you go on the, yes, we want to learn more about this person. And of course, an interview will be the way that you get the job. But we need to ensure that the resume is not going to have you cut out of the process really quickly. So a good resume will ensure that you don't go to the no pile. It really needs to be the thing that has the recruiter or the hiring manager wanting to know more about who you are. Next slide. So one of the things that I always give advice on is keywords on a resume, and they're important for both human recruiters and artificial recruiters. More and more these days, big companies and recruitment agencies use artificial intelligence to help with recruitment. In the early days, that was really just their recruitment system, helping them sort candidates, so search for candidates, or I've got 100 people who have applied and I want to shortlist by the number of people who have experience in X, whatever X might be. So a quick search through. Now, you might have experience, but if you haven't used the right keywords, then you may be overlooked. These days, there's far more sophisticated technology that's used by recruiters, and that's in the like of chatbots and virtual recruitment assistants who will help do the shortlisting. And again, they're programmed, of course, but they will be looking for the keywords. So we'll say the role is a warehouse team leader, then you would want to make sure that you're referencing the word warehouse as opposed to stores. Very simple. You could definitely use both, but pay attention to what's in the advertisement and ensure that those are the keywords that are replicated in your application. You need to ensure that the real recruiter or the artificial recruiter doesn't cut you out just because it didn't translate the words that they were looking for. So that is really important, and ensure that you've repeated those words, because then it is far more likely that your application is going to stand out. I mean, a real recruiter will eventually look at your resume, but in these days with so much technology, it's you just need to ensure that you're covering all of those bases. It does seem a little bit harsh, but with hundreds and hundreds of applications coming in, HR people are often very time poor, so they do use technology. Make sure that you embrace that and give yourself the best chance. Make sure it's easy to read, and your soldier on team will help you with that. The presentation's important, and not war and peace. And of course, really critical, translating your military experience to, more civilian terminology is also important as well. It's not so bad for a company like us because, we're in the defence industry. But if you're applying outside of the defence industry, they may not understand a word you're saying. So thinking about your experience in terms of, what's that called in, in the warehouse industry or the electrical industry, and ensure that that's the story that you're telling. Lay it out well, bullet points rather than lots of paragraphs, and make sure in your resume that you're focusing not just on what your role responsibilities were, but the achievements that you had as well. And that's really important. Again, it all comes down to your personal brand, showing what you're made of and what you can do. Next slide. So a cover letter. Now, some applications will tell you that a cover letter is optional. Absolutely, never fail to include one. Even if you're emailing your application, always include a cover letter. Do we read them? Yes, we do. And sometimes it will be a virtual recruiter that reads it, that artificial intelligence, but absolutely, it's really important. Every time you apply for a job, you should include a cover letter, because this is the document that you can really tailor to that company or to that role that you are applying for. Common things, I make sure that you've spelt their names right. And my favourite ones is we got an application that said because why they were so passionate to join Boeing. Well, we're BAE Systems, so obviously sending out a lot of letters. So be really careful, make it genuine, but make it tailored to the job that you're applying for or the type of role that you're wanting to be considered for. If there's a person's name on the job advertisement, make sure you address it to them. If there isn't a name, call the organisation and ask who you should address it to if there isn't any guidance. But definitely that well-written cover letter shows the reader that you can write well, that you can articulate yourself, because that's important as well. But again, it helps to articulate why you are a great person for that organisation and a great person for that job. Next slide. So where do we find all these jobs? Company sites, of course. So, for example, you can go on the BAE Systems site and look at our careers. You can have a look at current job openings and express your interest. And there are many big organisations and even some small organisations where you'll be able to do the same thing. So that's a good place to find jobs, but also find information before you apply for a job or before you go for an interview. But these days, those company sites are only the tip of the iceberg. So if you're interested in working for a certain company or you've been invited for an interview, do not turn up to that interview without doing some forensic research. Have a look at their website, have a look at their careers site, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. Google search, what's said about them in the news. Maybe they're a publicly listed company, what's their financial performance like? You could have a look at their annual reports online, maybe understand their share price. Have a look what they say and what's said about them on social media channels. And so look, what can you learn about them from what they post or what others post about them? There might be other forums. So have a look on Seek reviews. There are lots of information about companies. You can also go on sites like Whirlpool, where you'll see people comment on the good, the bad and the ugly of that organisation. And again, that's all just, that's somebody's perception or their opinion, but it can still give you some good insight and perhaps help you form some good questions to ask. That knowledge is definitely powerful. So ensure you find out everything you can. There's no excuse not to find out information these days. It is there at your fingertips. Next slide. So where else to look? So for as far as where should I look for a job? There's obviously a lot of job boards out there. Main ones, of course, being Seek. Career One's still there, but I certainly don't rate that. But Seek, Defence Jobs, places like Indeed, Apply Direct, and Zuna. Obviously, go on to LinkedIn. There are a whole lot of other places that you can look for roles as well. There would be on, if you're studying at university or TAFE, they'll often have a job board. I know we post on some of those. Recruitment companies have their own portals to apply for jobs or to register your interest. So there's a lot of different places that you can actually look for advertised vacancies, or where you might just be able to register your interest for upcoming vacancies. So there are a lot, and seriously, what I've got there is only just the tip of the iceberg. Just search job boards on Google and you will find a huge selection. Next slide. Now, I mentioned about networking earlier. Job search networking is all about making connections with people who might be in a position to help you or to connect you with other people. So consider that networking is that, I'll connect with somebody who could connect with me with somebody else, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's about building your network out. And so, it's very difficult to go and network with people you don't know right now because there's no public events on at the moment. We're all, fairly much working alone, but you can network online. But when someone says, what do you do? Who are you? Be prepared to be able to tell them. That's kind of like your elevator pitch. I'm Cathy. I work in human resource and I work for BAE Systems. If I was looking for a role, I might tell them that I'm Cathy and my profession is human resources, and I'm currently looking for a great new opportunity. So something really succinct to be able to share. And of course, your networking could be something that is not 100% work related. So I'm Cathy and I work in human resource, but I'm also very passionate about scuba diving because I might be at a scuba diving event. So anything to, get a conversation going with people, but also to be able to share with them who you are and what you do and what is it that you're looking for. So if you are on the job hunt, really give some time as to the types of organisations you want to work with, and then think about, do you know who works there? Is there someone you can connect with? Do you know someone who works there? And again, that's the ask people in your network to connect you to other people. So if you start with a bit of a list of the companies that you're interested in, if you've got a defined list, and then start thinking about how you might build your network to get connected and give yourself a much better chance. Next slide. Again, networking. Now we talked, if I think about that, think about who you know, family and friends, people you've worked with before, maybe people who are your referees or have been referees in the past, events that you can attend, even virtual events, charity events, of course, social media, anywhere there are people, either in the online world or the real world. Who do you know? How do you know them? And who do they know? Because those people can be really important in connecting you with others who help build your brand, help find that amazing next opportunity. All right, the next slide. I mentioned in the beginning experience versus skills. Now, sometimes we'll see a job advertisement and we might meet 7 out of the 10 criteria or 6 out of the 10 criteria. Before you say, I'm not going to give that a go, think about what transferable skills do I have that would be useful. I might not tick the box for experience, but what are my skills that could be transferable to that? You don't want to, I would absolutely say don't lie, because you will come undone with that, but be a bit creative. Think about those transferable skills, your equivalent experience. So, for example, some job advertisements might ask for experience with a particular computer system. If that's the only thing you haven't got, apply anyway. But think about, have I got experience with a similar computer system, for example? And you can talk about, whilst I don't have experience in X, I have experience in Y, and I believe this to be transferable. If that's the only thing you're missing, generally we could say, well, we could teach them how to do that. So really think about that in terms of what you could offer instead. Emphasize your qualifications, because you might not have experience, but you might have done a course. And so emphasize that in place of saying that you have experience. There might be things that you're really passionate about. I might not have experience with a particular system, but I'm passionate about learning new systems, and I have experience in a range of systems, including, so I'm confident I could develop skills in that. So take care to translate skills, education, experience. And this is really one for people coming out of the military, is that we need to ensure, don't assume that everyone understands what your military qualifications mean, or that what your experience was, because some of the names of your roles will be so foreign to people. And if it makes them feel a bit stupid, like, I really don't even understand what this resume is, you probably won't get a second look. So really take care, and your soldier on team can help you with that, to translate that material out so that people well outside of the military do understand. So think about that. If you're thinking about experience and skills, what can you offer versus what you can't? If I can tick 7 out of the 10 things, okay, I can offer a lot. Give it a go. Back yourself and give it a go. Next slide. Now, as Nike says, just do it. I would say have a go. That's easier said than done, because you might, it's very daunting looking for a job. And it's very daunting, particularly if you've been in, a military environment, or even the same company for a really long time. That idea to put it out there, and, there can be a bit of lack of confidence. But have a go. Back yourself. What is the worst that could happen? You don't get the job. But you might get the job. So you'll never know unless you give it a go. Now, it might be that you feel, again, you don't meet 100% of the criteria. Think about what we just looked at there. Back yourself. What can you do versus what can't you do? It might also be that the job that you apply for might not be 100% for you, but you might then be the ideal candidate for the next job. So still put it out there and give yourself that opportunity. Don't let fear or lack of confidence get in the way, or what is called imposter syndrome. Now, some of you may have heard of this before. Now, they say that more women are impacted by imposter syndrome than men, but it absolutely impacts everybody. It's essentially self-doubt. I can't really do this. How did I get here? They're going to find out that I'm not as good as what my resume says. So it essentially, you start believing that you're an imposter, that the skills that you have, you kind of fluked it, or I'm not really that confident. And that's what's called imposter syndrome. I mean, we won't take too much time to look at that today, but have a bit of a Google of that. I've just got a couple of quick, just on the next slide, Prue. There's some ways to get around that. So if you think that that might have been you, that whole holy moly, like, they're going to find out that I'm not that good and I'm losing my confidence, there are some things that you can do, and that is about breaking the silence. So fessing up, just, talk to someone you trust and say, I'm really lacking confidence. I'm feeling like I just don't think I can do this. And having someone that you trust that you can talk to, I think, is important. Separate those feelings from fact, right? So you've done all those things before. You can do it. You're feeling a bit anxious, and you lost some confidence. And sometimes we'll feel a bit stupid, but separate what's real and what is just the stuff that's going on in our heads. So there's a few things there, and I won't labour it, just conscious of time. But I think the really important thing is is this, the fake it until you make it, right? That isn't about lying, but I think that little bubble there is so true. It's not about who you are that holds you back. It's who you think you are, right? So the more confident that you are in yourself, you can do this, you got this, that even if I'm not feeling confident, that's the bit I'm going to fake. I'm going to take a deep breath. I am going to visualize success. I'm not going to put myself down. I am not going to feel stupid. I can do this. I am going to do this. And that again, it's the just do it. So there's, as I said, a lot of research that you can read on that, but don't let something like an imposter syndrome stop you from getting that great next job or that promotion just because you're essentially starting to lack some confidence. Next slide. Now, the standing out from the crowd, my little yellow duck there, very simple, professional email address, an attended phone with voicemail because people will contact you, an appropriate voicemail message. We talked a bit about having a professional outfit for job interviews, whether that's going to be virtual or, in fact, actually meeting someone face to face, and ensure that you've got your referees all schooled up. Typically, we're only interested in speaking to people from the last 5 years or so. So think about who will be good referees, who will be able to say positive things about you and your brand and help you win that role. The next slide, we've talked a little bit there about your tailorable cover letter, that professional resume. Research, research, research. Know everything you can about the organisations that you apply to and that you get interviewed by. And don't forget those targeted keywords in your application, noting that the real recruiters and the virtual recruiters are going to need to see those things pop out, and that's how you'll avoid being popped straight onto the no list. The next slide, we talked already a bit about make sure you do your research. Now think about the types of questions that you might get asked. And again, your soldier on team can help you in your preparation for interviews. So I can guarantee you're going to be asked for examples on things. So if you're looking at a job, the job description, and they're looking for someone with, great forklift driving experience, bet your bottom dollar you'll be asked for a question. And it won't be yes or no, it'll be about tell me about your experience. So ensure that you've thought about some examples that are relevant to the job you're applying for. Prepare well, dress for success, test your tech, right? So if you're doing a video interview, make sure you've tested the connection. Nothing worse than the sound not working or you can't get the video up. Make sure that you've tested it, not 5 minutes before. Do it at least a couple of days before, because if you've got any troubles, you can get back to the person that you're doing the interview with and let them know you've got some troubles, and they will be able to help you. Create the space you need. If you're in a very busy house or a busy office or you've got lots and lots of noise around, then that's not going to be conducive to a good interview. So ensure that if you've got young children, you've got somebody to look after them for that hour or so that you're in the interview. If you've got a dog, pop the dog outside. Nothing worse than the dog barking all over your interview, etc. And work out so that you're not expecting the electrician to come right in the middle of your interview. So create that space. Be punctual and courteous. Back yourself again and just breathe. This is daunting, but we're all human beings. We've all been through this before. Just take a deep breath and, as I said, you got this, back yourself in. Next slide. Okay, now for the interview, you'll obviously get some great tips from your soldier on team in terms of getting ready for the interview, and you've dressed for success and you've practiced your questions and you've done it. You've obviously no good doing a handshake at the moment. And I'm not quite sure, because we're doing virtual interviews, we don't even have to worry about the fist bump or the elbow bump. But so when you think about after that interview, follow up, send a thank you to the person that organised the interview or the recruiter, the person you're dealing with, whether that be a text message or an email, to say thank you very much for your time. I enjoyed meeting you. The role sounds very exciting. I look forward to hearing about the next steps. Because even if you're not successful for that role, you've created a really professional impression. Seek feedback. If you don't get the role, it will be disappointing, but ask for feedback, because you can use that feedback to obviously improve next time. Maybe it was something about the way you presented at interview. Use that feedback to get better for the next one, and be sure that you're always courteous. Thank them for the feedback. Even if you get a reject letter and no feedback, thank them for that. Thank them for the time. Anything that you can do to create a positive impression will definitely stand you in good stead for when the next opportunity arises. The next slide. So common mistakes, just very quickly, failing to proofread your resume, dear Boeing, etc. Failing to recognise that every interaction is an interview. Every time that you meet with someone from an organisation that has anything to do with the hiring process, you are being interviewed, or you're creating an impression. So whether that's the receptionist ringing up to book you in for an interview, be extra courteous to that person too. Consider that every interaction you could potentially be judged. Failing to prepare is an absolute blunder. Never trash previous employers or bosses or present poorly. Don't lie. We want to put our best foot forward, but if you lie, you will come unstuck, and that's no good for anybody. Never forget to follow up, and don't just rely on job ads for leads for jobs. Go to those websites, use your network, go to social media, and that's where most of the jobs you'll find. Not everything's advertised, and in fact only a percentage of roles are advertised. Failing to use your network or build your network, that's also a blunder. And of course, don't forget to back yourself, because that's one of the most important things in this whole process. So a quick summary on the next slide. Manage your personal brand. You want to be that fish that stands out. Be prepared and do your research. Build an effective and professional resume or CV. Tailor and use great cover letters. Don't forget those keywords. Focus on your transferable skills and experience. Go online, be online, network. Scrutinise job ads. What are they looking for? Use those keywords. And I'm going to say again, back yourself and just do it, and follow up. Don't forget to follow up, but back yourself, because you got this. It might take a while. It might take a few goes, but you will get there. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share with you. That is enough talking from me. I'd love to take your questions. Is there anything that anyone would like to ask?
Thank you so much, Cathy. It's Eloise here. Thank you so much for your wonderful
Hello.
insights there.
Oh, sorry.
Just a reminder to keep those videos off, just for the privacy perception. This is for those of us. Cathy, you are a leader in your field. You bringing us best practice. I really like to encourage everyone who's here today to realise Cathy's absolute skill in the attraction and selection processes in this industry and in her world is just absolutely outstanding. Let's go back to a question. We did have a question from Amy, which is that she wants to know, does a virtual recruiter, as you mentioned, let you know if you didn't make the yes pile, or is that the job of HR to send that?
Depends on the organisation. So some virtual recruiters, chatbots really, will help you decide whether or not to apply. So you can actually have a conversation with a chatbot, and the chatbot might say, unfortunately, based on what you've told me, you're not eligible for this role. So, I mean, that's pretty sophisticated. Typically though, so for example, for BAE Systems, we don't have chatbots. Not yet anyway, but we definitely use the intelligence in our recruitment system to help us shortlist. But we don't automatically reject you. It's absolutely a person that will do that. So whilst we will use the technology to help with the shortlisting process, there still is a human oversight in terms of the next steps of then actually shortlisting for interview. So I can't comment for absolutely everybody. There are some organisations that use technology to basically get you right to the point of final interview, and you get interviewed by virtual recruiters. Now, we don't go that far, but, in every process will be different. So just you just have to take that one by, you'll be able to see when you apply if that's actually a real person or not. Even if you get rejected by a virtual recruiter, you can still go back and ask for feedback, and invariably that will be a human being that helps you with that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Cathy. That's wonderful. We would encourage you, everyone here who's on this call, to contact your local Soldier On Pathways officer to give you greater insight into your applications. We can assist you in developing your professionalism and assisting you to translate the languages of both the roles that you've been in and those achievements that are so critical to positioning your stories of success. We're here to help you build your network. I'm going to pop a link for the Soldier On LinkedIn page into the comments. But just before we finish, is there anyone else who wants to pop a question into the meeting chat for Cathy specifically? There's been some lovely interactions between our ambassadors, both Mark Bryant and Jeremy Satchell, offering to connect you with through LinkedIn. So please, people, go ahead and do that. No, any other questions? Now we're starting to have people who are obviously working towards timelines. Justin wants to say thank you. Prue, Cathy, I'd like to personally thank you for your wonderful insight.
Oh, my pleasure.
Felt you were talking to me, and that's lovely. I hope everyone on the call felt that the intimacy of being able to present this in a webinar, really felt that was absolutely personal information. So thank you very much. Mark Bryant saying some defence companies will guarantee you an interview if you meet the requirements. How do you respond to that, Cathy?
So we actually launched a new candidate care program for veterans late last year. So if you apply and that you are identified, because there is a question that says that you're a veteran, that you are identifying that you're a veteran, we can't guarantee you the job, of course, but you will be guaranteed that you will get feedback, and rather than get a standard email, that you will get some contact. As part of our Soldier On pledge, of course, and all other pledge organisations, we make that commitment that if you've got the right skills and experience, we will absolutely interview you. And of course we would. If you meet the criteria for the role, we would definitely interview you. Now, we can't guarantee that everyone who applies, who says they are a veteran, is going to get the job, but we will do our very best to ensure that we're explaining to you why you didn't. But it also might be that there's another more suitable job just around the corner. So you will absolutely get, and if you don't get that level of service, then do let Prue or let Lou know, and then let me know.
Thank you so much, Cathy. And we are just coming up to wrap up time. To the Soldier On participants who are on this call, we're looking forward to hearing your feedback about this presentation. We'll be sending out a formal email to ask you what you think about these Prep for Pathways events. We'd love to hear your feedback so that we can encourage, so that we can understand what it is that you need to hear from us. And if there are any hints or ideas of topics that you'd like to hear, both here in South Australia and across the nation, from the people who are in states, including the ACT, New South Wales, Queensland and Victoria, who are on the call, thank you very much. Prue, is there any? Oh,
I'm back. No, I just wanted to say thank you again to Cathy. You've been that was an amazing presentation. It covered so much and so many little hints and tips. So I think everyone who was part of it really got something out of it. Just to reinforce that, at Soldier On, our job is to help veterans and their families to thrive. And if there's anything that the whole Pathways team, our social connection team, or our psych team can do, we are across the nation and we are here to help you. And thank you again to Cathy. That was just an amazing presentation.
My absolute pleasure. And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I've nearly 8,000 connections and you guys are welcome to all of them.
And just to finish things off, I'm putting the Soldier On LinkedIn page link into the comments field just so that you can use that as well. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Cathy. And to everyone on this call, thank you again for your participation.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
See
ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Phil, see ya. Bye-bye. Thank you.